Welcome everyone to section 2.5, modeling fitting curves to data with graphing utilities. And so for today, I'm actually not going to attach my iPad. I'm going to just type my answers right into this spreadsheet as I get them. And so you can see that I am going to be using Google Sheets for this. If you prefer to use Microsoft Excel, you may, but you'll have to figure out how to do a couple of the things that I'm doing using Sheets. I do know how to do them using Excel also. So if you wanted some tutoring on how to do it in Excel, I would be glad to provide that. But again, I'm doing it in Sheets because Sheets is free and accessible to everyone. So with that being said, everyone, our purpose is to construct models to simulate and predict real-world occurrences. And so when we were doing the linear equations and things in chapter 1, we wrote a lot of equations. And that's because writing linear equations is really pretty easy. You may have noticed in the last couple sections in chapter 2, we have not written any equations because writing quadratic equations can be very difficult, especially when you're trying to model data that is kind of all over the place. Same thing with things like power functions or exponential functions and that kind of thing, but we will get more into that as we start this section. So some need to know notes, part 1. We have Excel or Google Sheets can be used to create equations that create a line of best fit and an equation that models and predicts the behavior of data. So basically what we're going to be doing, everyone, is taking real world data, which is not going to follow a perfect curve or a perfectly straight line. We're going to be putting it into Sheets, and we are going to be using Sheets to get an equation that fits the data as best as possible. Now, there are different models of equations we're going to be using to do this, and you don't need to know all of these really well. You just have to be able to look at the picture and say, hey, does that line kind of fit what the graph is doing or not? And so those models we're going to use are going to be linear equations, quadratic equations, and the way that it's going to be called in Sheets or in Excel is a polynomial to the power of 2 is a quadratic. And then cubic is next, and that's a polynomial to the power of 3. And then we may also run into some instances where a logarithmic or an exponential function is the best fit. Now, to be honest, you don't need to know anything about any of these equations to do the lesson. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot everything about logarithmic equations, don't worry, so did I. So it's not going to be a big deal. With that, everyone, that's going to be it for this video. Just the introduction here and the Schlegel notes part 1. Again, don't freak out. This is really pretty easy, and we'll work together to get it figured out.